The April meeting of the Southam Village Zoning Board of Appeals is now open.
I move we accept adjournment for number 2917, 2918, and 2920.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That brings us up to the two decisions, which are 2911 and 2919.
As to 2911, I move we accept this decision as proposed.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. As for 2919, I move we accept the decision as proposed.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye. Down museum.
That takes us down to what remains of the pending cases, the first one being 2890, Jody Donahue, 1211 Meadow Lane. Is there anyone here for that? We've carried this case for a long, long time, and we did get something in writing, but there's nobody here. Should I ask whether they want to adjourn, or they want to tell us what it's all about?
Nobody cares.
So, Rick, we should just adjourn it again?
I think you should adjourn it since they have responded to Chick's comments, and Chick hasn't looked at, Alan responded yesterday, so Chick hasn't had an
Yeah,
opportunity
this
to look
just
at
came
it.
yesterday.
Yeah, so I think you should adjourn it.
Okay,
I move we adjourn case number 2890.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
On the application of 2910.
I'm sorry, before I
African
forget,
American
Chick, after
Museum.
you've reviewed those, maybe you should give them the courtesy of notifying them that they need to appear.
Yes,
Yeah, that certainly would be nice if they did.
I had expected them to be here tonight based
Yeah.
on the email.
Yeah.
And I
Gentlemen.
know we're backing up, but there was some talk before about a potential for re-advertising. Does that warrant some discussion? It's been on
If
the
it's
agenda
only septic,
continuously.
you know, if it's only a septic system and whatnot, maybe not.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't really see any
Just
reason.
leave it the way it is.
yeah, and it's been pending all these months, no one's come.
I think you're just in time, your case is up.
Oh, I'm sorry to be late.
2910, the
Here I am.
African American Museum, 245 North Sea Road.
Linda Riley, 235 Hampton Road, for the applicant. I handed in revised surveys after many meetings with the planning board. I hope you have had a chance to review them.
I mean, I have it, that's fine.
We've been back and forth with the planning board, who had concerns about the amount of parking and the access on North Sea Road. And, well, as a result of those meetings and comments from Nelson Pope and Voorhees and their engineer, we revised the plan pretty significantly. It's still the same building. The building is still going to be reconstructed in its pre-existing location. What's changed is really the things around the building. We had to
I'm sorry,
add,
Did you hand up revised plans?
did you all get the revised? I
There's
handed
one in
them
the
all
file
up.
here.
I don't have it.
I don't have a new survey.
When did you file them?
Well, you know what? They're all in the file.
They're all in the file?
Every one of them's in the file.
Yeah, I submitted 8 sets for,
Yeah, there's 8 sets in the file.
okay.
Maybe you better, maybe you can pass
Everybody
them
hands them
around.
out.
Just two? Anybody else get one?
You get one to Rick? You got one.
Yes, I have a letter
Is there an
and
extra one, Kevin?
a revised plan.
We're assisting the planning board, but I'll take a look at
Okay.
it.
So the building is exactly the same. Back when I initially submitted this variance application, I submitted plans for the building, and nothing has changed there. It has to be reconstructed because it's in such dire physical shape, but it's going to be reconstructed exactly in the same footprint that it is now, with very few exceptions. One is that the front stoop now, as you see, comes right out to the front walk. And that will also, when they build a basement, which is proposed to be built for storage purposes, they will be installing skylights there next to the stoop, on either side of the stoop. So there's an additional front yard variance that's required there. It was noticed in my original application. That's the same as the original application. The other thing is the ramps for handicap access that have to be added along the rear and the side of the building. Because this is a corner lot on two streets, we have a side yard setback from Hillcrest Avenue required of 35 feet. So again, this was noticed in the first application. We need a variance to accommodate that handicap ramp from Hillcrest Avenue, which is either somewhere between 31 and 32 feet from Hillcrest Avenue. I realize I'm going to have to get the exact setback on this survey from Squires, but I thought I would try to make a list, because I've been back and forth with this survey so many times, of everything that needs to be changed, and get it done once more, and that's it. But I scaled it off. It's about 31 and a half feet from that ramp. Because, and the other variance is that is more than technical, is the transitional yard variance. This plan is showing 5 feet for the buffer area. That's not what we intended. We intended 10 feet for the transitional yard. And I'll have that changed on the survey as well. You can see that I scaled it off, there is 10 feet there. There's 10 feet on this plan available, and we're willing to give 10 feet to the transitional yard.
That's going toward the west?
Yes, that's on the westerly side property line. That's the only property line that's abutting a residence. The others aren't, well, the one on the north is commercial, and the others are streets. The other technical sort of variance that we've requested in a letter, because your village attorney brought it to my attention that this really should be done, relates to the fact that although these three tax map lots are going to be used functionally as one lot, and we have a management agreement in place that allows that to be the case, technically we can't actually merge the 3 lots, because the center lot where the building is, the old barber shop, is acquired with Peconic Bay Community Preservation funds. And the town has told us that because they're restricted under the law, they can't alienate the property. It has to continue to be held by the town by deed, although they have happily and been very cooperative in making a management agreement with the village for this to continue to be used in conjunction with the museum. The 2 lots on the other sides of the building are both village-owned. So I need a technical variance in the middle for the building to be reconstructed at basically a 0 lot line and less. I mean, as you can see on the south end, it, with the ramps, actually goes over the lot line. Depending on how you look at it, it's encroaching not only to the lot line, but beyond it. And we also would need, in the center lot, tax lot 72, a coverage variance, because the coverage that is shown, if you look at just that tax map lot, is 53.4%, where 25% is the maximum allowed. The overall coverage for the entire assembled parcel is way under 25%. So the impact of this is not going to be a lot of coverage in practical fact, because the other lots can't be used for anything. So those are the variances that are being requested. We spent a lot of time talking about parking, what parking was needed, what parking was required. I've had the building inspector look at this, and the parking calculations are on this revised survey. What we came up with is the code provides that for a place of public assembly, which this is, although there's not a lot of room for public assembly, the parking spaces are calculated for where there's unfixed seating, and there is planned to be no fixed seating. It's calculated at 1 seat per 40 square feet of area. The basement is proposed to have absolutely no seating or gathering. It's going to be for storage and archival matters and that sort of thing. The first floor, which you can see from your plans, is encumbered with a stairwell right in the middle of the floor, which is going to be reconstructed just like that. The front part of it has a place for built-in display area and a receptionist desk. So what's left, and in the back, there's going to be a bathroom and an area that's going to be open and available for seating. We measured out that area based on the plans that were provided to you, and it's about 9 feet by 13 feet. So that came up with 3 spaces, plus 1 for an employee, which is required under your code. So we came up with 4 spaces, which is what's shown here. That allowed us to eliminate the exit on North Sea Road, which the planning board didn't particularly like. And it allowed us to cut way down on the amount of asphalt paving here and to allow a more open feeling. And the museum agreed that it really doesn't need that much parking. It's going to be a relatively quiet use. And the building inspector was good with it. I just thought I'd cover that with you, though. We've talked before about what the use is going to be. It's going to be a museum, but very much an archival center, a research center for, with an emphasis on a place where youth can go and do research on their community and the African American history in this community. And it's not really planned to have gatherings as such. There's no room for it, if you take a look at the plans again. So rather than go on about this, I'll be happy to entertain any questions from board members.
By reconstruct, you mean that you're gonna tear down the building and build a new building,
Pretty
the
much,
same footprint?
yes. They wanted to remodel the existing building. That was their preference, but they got such a dismal report from the engineer who reviewed it that they concluded that they have to basically reconstruct it.
And then the parking is all gonna be off-site,
Well,
so
there's
you're gonna
4
have to buy 4
spaces,
spaces, right?
there's 4 spaces on-site. No, it's on-site.
4 spaces on-site,
There's 4 spaces on-site, including a handicap space.
so you don't need any parking off-site.
That's correct.
Does the museum envision a need or a desire for a sign in front?
Yes, there probably will be a sign. We have to go to Architectural Review Board. We haven't been there yet. And we do expect to put in an application for a sign permit. They expect it to comply with whatever the requirements are. They're not planning on asking for a variance for that sign. They haven't gotten there yet. They've been so...
So you don't think you'll have to come back here? For
I
a
am
variance
not
on the
expecting
sign?
to come back here for a sign variance.
Is the buffer for plant screening, or is there, what are they gonna do?
They're, in the buffer area, they're
Yeah.
going to, yes, come up with a landscaping plan that will be relatively modest, but it will provide some screening from the adjacent property to the west. And it will be submitted, Tim Rumpf has offered to do it very kindly, and it will be submitted to anyone who wants to see it.
Is the property gonna be fenced?
Yes, it is proposed to be, well, at least partially fenced. There will be a fence along the transitional yard, the westerly property line. And there is,
There's a
I don't know
fence
if
there
they're
now in
planning on
front.
doing more than that. Brenda, you here? Oh, there you are. Is there going to be more fencing than that? Do you?
I'm not sure, I don't think so.
Yeah. It's not shown on here. Tim Rumpf is working on this. Tim Rumpf did do a landscape plan on the prior survey, but it's all been changed around now, so he has to go back to work. But
I just think it's a corner lot, so, and it's a sort of a big area. The building's right in the middle, so people have a tendency to, cut across the corner. Make a path across. Yeah, that's why I was wondering if they were gonna fence that side.
we'll see what Tim Rumpf comes up with. I don't think they have any present plans to do that. Part of what they want to do is keep the sight lines open here between Hillcrest and North Sea Road. So they're going to certainly leave this corner pretty open. And their thought was that it would be refreshing and a good idea to have a good lawn, basically, an emphasis on lawn, as opposed to, pavements and fancy specimens.
Any other questions? Rick?
My only suggestion would be that, this is going to have to, as you know, going to have to be re-advertised so that the technical things are covered. So maybe you should either file an amended application or file something that includes the old, whatever old relief is still needed and the new relief, so to be sure that it gets advertised, in the next issue.
Okay. I was hoping it wouldn't have to be re-advertised because because most of it has to do with that technical variance in the center lot that is new.
And let me just see,
You didn't have measurements to the stairwell or anything. There's no measurements on here, so
let me just look at this.
I'll get those on.
Let me look at what the,
The original.
I'm seeing this for the first time right now, so.
I'm sorry, I thought I'd given you enough time.
uh,
I didn't.
So, let's see. Oh, a transitional yard variance. The real, apart from the technical ones, the transitional yard variance is what you need. Okay, see, are the parking spaces within the transitional yard? I presume they are,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, they are. There's a 10-foot separation between the boundary line,
Yes,
as
okay.
we're proposing it, and the parking, but it is within the 50-foot required transitional yard.
And did the original site plan show parking? I have to look back.
Yes, it did. Showed more parking.
Yes, it did, okay. Actually, since the only thing that really is new is the technical things that I mentioned to Linda, that she's listed in here, And I don't see any need to re-advertise because this is really one overall parcel. We're looking at it as one overall parcel. The village board is looking at it as one overall parcel. So I don't think anybody is going to understand the technical stuff other than us.
Is there anyone from the public who'd like to be heard of this application? Therefore, we're going to adjourn this for all purposes. Right?
Yes, because Linda's going to give us a revised, I think you said you're doing a revised site plan that will,
Well, that will incorporate, I wanted to make sure that I got your comments from tonight, and as I understand it, you're going to need the setbacks shown on here specifically, and you're going to have to see the transitional yard revised to 10 feet where it's now showing 5,
yes,
which was, okay.
yes.
And I just wanted to see if there was anything else before I...
No, this is what I was expecting. We were waiting for them to get input from the planning board so that they came here with a site plan that was what the planning board was looking for. And it sounds like this is what the planning board is looking for.
They were enthusiastic about it, yes, I can
Okay,
say
and,
that. They can't approve it, of course, until you grant the variances.
Right.
But, yeah.
So I move we adjourn for all purposes.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
On the application of case number 2915, David Cardali, 414 Hill Street.
Hi, good evening, everyone. At the last meeting, the board asked me to do, there's 2 items. One was to address the air conditioners. I had moved the air conditioners to the front of the property, basically at the request of the building department. I was advised that they prefer them in the front yard, so the sound doesn't transfer to the side yards or to the rear yards of the neighbors. We all had a discussion, and you had asked if we could move them again. So this would be the second move. So I submitted new surveys. We moved the air conditioners to the east side of the property. They're not within the 10-foot side yard, and that meets the requirements. But again, actually I submitted this. It was, everyone should have a copy of this, to address those 2 items that he asked me to address.
So they're now to the east side of the house?
Yes, it would be on the east side of the property. Actually,
To
there,
meet the setbacks?
yes, yes. If you don't allow, if the board doesn't allow us to have them in the front, what the building department advised us is that usually on air conditioners, they're really not listed in the code. They said, but sometimes they ask if the air conditioners will meet the accessory structure setback, which is 10 feet for this property. So if I do put them in the front, they're still 40 feet, way beyond the 10-foot accessory structure setback. And then I also have, because on Hill Street, we have that additional front grassy area, an additional 20 feet. So it's a good distance from the street. The building department also advised me they just issued a CO for a property on Halsey Street, which I also gave you a survey and a copy of. That air conditioner, that property is, actually the address, I'll give you the exact address. 202 Halsey Street. You should have the survey and the photographs. That's a corner property, and they put the air conditioners right out on a corner, basically only about 15 feet off the corner of, 15 to 20 feet off the corner of each street. And they issued a CO. They told me to go look at it so I could see the approval, but again, I'll defer to the board. If you want me to move them to the east side, I will. If you allow me to put them in the front.
That property was never before us for a variance.
What's that?
That property was never before us for a variance.
Okay, I didn't know. They suggested that property. But I'll do with the board, you know, at your discretion.
They've
I'll-
got it behind that hedge and that fence there, right?
Yes,
On
yes,
the corner,
they fenced it in, and they, yeah, I gave you pictures. They fenced it in, and
Right
they put
across the
hedges.
street, so.
Oh, okay.
The house where nobody lives, if you want, is that one.
Okay.
People know that.
But, Dan, didn't you bring up, is it 10.7 feet off now? 10 point, off the side? 10,
Yeah,
10 feet 7 inches or 10.7?
oh, for the, hold on.
Remember, Dan, you brought up the fact that they need room for an air.
Yeah, I wanted to see the size of the air conditioning units. Usually they're not jammed right up against the house. They're off the house because they have to breathe, so I want to make,
Right.
I know that you show them there, but I'm not sure that they fit there.
Well, I actually have air conditioning units there now, in that same exact spot, for the existing structure. And that driveway basically is the same size driveway on that side of the property. And the air conditioning units, they can run as small as 18 inches, 18 by 22, some of the models. So,
So they're gonna be using like the, this type, like the Mitsubishi type units, or?
no, those go in the wall, but outside units, they make them smaller, but they will not be in that 10-foot. They'll be the code, whatever the requirement is off a house, if it's 6 inches, if it's 10 inches, whatever it is, but they won't be in that 10-foot setback, and we'll put them on the east side.
So if this was a cleared lot, you would, to comply with code, you'd have to be 60 feet off the road for the front yard?
80.
80 feet. And I looked through all the surveys you've shown, and they have them anywhere from 36 feet to 65 feet, so they're sort of like all over the map, but there were a number of them that were a little over 50 feet.
Well, there are ones in there that are 4 feet off, 27 foot, 27 foot, 20 foot. There's quite a few that's actually closer than what I'm proposing. And
Yeah, I know one of them was like a store, but, you know, I'm looking at the residence ones from what I could see.
no, as far as I know, that they're all residences.
The old plumbing store.
Yeah, right, the plumbing store, 50 feet, 67 feet, 47 feet, 50 feet. There's one 36 feet.
If I,
47 feet. Most of them are at over 45 feet, you know, between 45, 50 feet. And this is a much more massive house. That's what I was wonderful about. And they're going from like property line to property line with it. Where, I mean, they're really 10 foot on one side and 10 foot on the other.
Yeah, 40
five,
feet.
Maybe,
7.
maybe this would be a good point for me to mention some comments, because that's where
Sure.
some of the discussion is headed. If you remember at the initial hearing, we didn't have any data regarding the floor area of the existing house. So we asked for that, and so at last month's hearing, they did submit a survey with that data on it, and we also asked them to submit neighborhood information, which has been submitted. So I've now got a better picture of this than I had before, and let me just mention some comments. Okay. First of all, according to the data they've given us, the total floor area of the existing house is 1,245 square feet. The total floor area of the proposed house is 2,945 square feet. So it's more than double. Now, as you are aware, you know, we have a provision in the zoning code that expressly authorizes the zoning board to grant a variance to permit enlargement of an existing non-conforming house, provided that the enlargement does not exceed 50%. 50% of the existing 1245 would bring you up, would add another 600 and some square feet, so it would bring you up to under 1,900 square feet, whereas this proposes 2,945 square feet. So this application is not an application that could be granted under that provision in the zoning code because they're substantially exceeding the 50% limitation. And also, they're not really proposing to enlarge the existing house, they're proposing a new house. But given that factor, that brings you into a situation where the fact that the existing house is 43.7 feet from Hill Street, that does not mean that you could have a new house double that size and claim the existing 43.7-foot setback should be utilized. So the fact that the existing house is 43.7 doesn't necessarily justify this application because of the relative size of the increase. Also, as you've previously indicated, this proposed house, although it would utilize the 43.7 front yard figure, it basically goes the width of the property with, minimum setbacks from each side, which puts a different perspective on the request for a front yard variance. Then I've looked at the surveys that we got at the work session last week, and I've particularly looked at the ones in the immediate neighborhood on the south side of Hill Street between Halsey Neck Lane and Old Field Lane. There are, including the subject parcel, there are 6 lots in that stretch between Halsey Neck Lane and Old Field Lane. Although 4 of the 5 other lots have front yard setbacks that are comparable to, but maybe a little bit more than the existing house on this parcel. Beginning at Halsey Neck Lane and moving east, the one in Halsey Neck Lane has 45.5. The next one in has 50.35. Then you have the subject parcel. Then the one next door to the east of that, the house, it's a unusually shaped lot, and the house is built way further back. And then there's 2 more houses in that strip, and one of them has 47 feet, and one of them has 67.9 feet. So there's various front yard setbacks in that immediate neighborhood. None of those existing houses are what you might call maximum width houses that go from the minimum side yard on each side. They all look very similar to in terms of that point, to the existing house, which has, having greater side yards than what they're proposing. So this is definitely a change to the neighborhood. And whether or not it's a significant change or not is something that you'll have to consider. But I wanted you to be aware that given the 50% limitation on enlargement and given the character of the immediate neighborhood, there isn't anything that's 43.7 feet from Hill Street that goes from side to side with the minimum setbacks. So this is a different animal than what's there now. And you certainly have the right, if you so choose, to ask them to consider alternatives, including alternatives involving a greater front yard setback. I'm not suggesting that they need to go to 80 feet, which is the front yard setback for the zone. The other houses in that stretch don't have 80 feet. And this is a rather small lot to have to put a 80-foot front yard setback in. But there's a lot of room there between 43.7 feet and 80 feet. So certainly if you feel that this could have a detrimental impact on the neighborhood as viewed from Hill Street, yeah, you have the ability to suggest that they look at alternatives. Those basically my comments, now that I have a full picture.
You could pick up about 5 feet on the pool alone. He's got a pool proposed for 16 by 37, which is not a stock size. A stock size is be 16 by 32. So he could pick up 5 feet right there.
And if you move the house back off the road, let's say 52 feet, 53 feet, rather than 43, so-
5 feet elsewhere too.
and there's space between the deck, and it's a huge pool house. 20 by 35 is really big.
What's the, Rick, what's the maximum size for that pool house, an accessory building? In this area?
Let's see,
You've got one that looks like it's over 700 square feet,
It's
It's-
the size of a small.
It's 800 square feet.
huh? It's just over 700 square feet, right?
800 square feet is the max.
800 square feet is the max. All right,
Yes.
so it's less than the max.
Yes.
Okay.
710.
Okay, 800 square feet is the max for this district. But, there's a max of 520 square feet in a district requiring 20,000 or less square feet of lot area. Now, this district requires 80,000 square feet, so it doesn't fall into that category. But if you looked at the size of the lot,
12,000 square
the
feet.
520 square foot max would certainly be consistent with the size of the lot. I think that's what you were asking me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're not talking about 800, we should be talking about 550.
by
Well, that would
20,
be-
right?
That would be in accordance with a different zone. This is an R8.
Oh, yeah, but you're asking for a significant front yard variance, a very substantial front yard variance. So what the board is exploring is if you want this proposed house, locating it further from Hill Street. And they're pointing out to you that you've got various accessories that you're proposing in the rear yard, but if you modify those somewhat, there would be room to move the house further back. In other words, you're basically maxing out everything, but wanting to keep a 43.7-foot front yard setback.
Correct, which is what is there now. Well, I'd also like to add, it came up at the last meeting, the ARB, we have a majority approval in favor of the application, so just wanted to note that, and I personally spoke with the attorney for the ARB on that.
Well, I mean, personally, myself, I'd be comfortable with 53 feet, another 10 feet further back, than a smaller
All right,
pool
smaller
house.
pool house, and a smaller pool. Pools normally go so the length is twice the width. That's why they're 16 by 32, they're 18 by 36, they're 20 by 40, etc. And you have 16 by 37, which is not a stock size pool. Not that there's anything wrong with it, it's just not a stock size. I'm just trying to point out a way where we can save 5 feet. And have a
You're
standing
saying make it
pool.
take it down to 32?
Yeah, be 16 by 32.
Then you have a 20-foot deep pool
What they're saying
house.
is if you move the house back to be about 10 feet further from Hill Street, which is what they're suggesting at the moment, it doesn't really impact the rest of your site plan, other than, you know, you pick up, if you reduce the pool to 16 by 32, you pick up 5 of that 10 feet right there. And you ought to be able to pick up a little bit more by making some other modifications.
Yeah, you could reduce the pool house by 5 feet easily.
That'd be 15 feet.
That's the size of a small ranch house.
That's
I
what
agree.
was-
Well, can I suggest, because I did talk to the architect, and we went over the site plan after the last meeting, if we move the house back 5 feet, is that
We
a,
were looking maybe a little more than that.
10.
15.
In other words, we're trying to lessen the impact on Hill Street because you have a much wider house than the house.
And it's
next
going
door.
to two-story. Yeah.
if I could address, with all due respect, 570 Hill Street is 50 feet from the street. That just went up. I think that's a 6,000 or 7,000 square foot house. Half acre plot, not much bigger. There are other houses on this list, they're large houses. What we're proposing based on current construction, this is under 3,000 square feet. Most of the houses going up, as you know, 5,000 plus. But I'm within the GFA on all aspects of this plan. I mean,
Board isn't asking you to reduce the size of the house. They're asking you to move it further from
Move it back.
Hill
Move-
Street.
slide it back.
In order to get the variance that you're asking for, you have to show that it's the minimum variance necessary to give you
I understand.
reasonable relief from the property.
Okay.
And it's obviously not.
If you're not renovating the house, you're sort of you made a clean slate of the property. So you can make improvements on it to make it conform to the street better.
The only thing that stays is the garage, and that's gonna be expanded a little bit. Everything else goes.
Right. So you're asking to slide it back 10 feet
10 feet.
and everything else? I can.
And the
I
smaller
can-
pool house.
You want me to reduce the pool house?
You'd like to reduce the size of the pool house here.
Like you said, for the zoning, which is, I think, what, R80, which is
An
a
R80.
two
I am
acre
an-
piece,
I'm an already.
that seems like an appropriate size, but when you put that R80 size pool house, because you happen to be in that zone, a smaller piece of land in that zone, it appears, it's like a small ranch house on a little piece of property.
Both
Is there
houses
gonna be a bathroom in that pool house?
proposed, yes,
Excuse me?
yes.
Where's the septic for that?
Front yard, it's shown on here.
Okay, that's gonna run all the way to the front?
Yeah, that's what the health department wanted. The, both houses to the west of me, the house on the corner, he has two large structures. He has, both houses to the west of me have full COs. They're not pool houses, they're actually independent houses on our property with heat and kitchens. The house, two houses to the west of me, the corner house, he received a variance to put a pool in his side yard.
I
Well,
don't recall
this-
it being in the
this-
side yard, I think it's a little bit behind the house, isn't
The one on the corner?
it? Yeah.
No, it's either in his front yard or it's in his side yard. But he had to get a variance, he had to come before the board.
You got a variance.
Yeah, he got a variance for it. He hasn't built it, but he has the approval. Yeah, he told me, he's like, I got it.
Right.
So, I mean, the only, I'm just asking for the front yard. 10 feet. If I slide the house back, I prefer, I mean, if I move it back 10 feet to keep everything as it is. The house to the east of me is a 2-acre plot. It's a 7,000 square foot house. Basketball court.
That's 80,000 square feet.
What? Yeah, it's a much bigger property, but he's got basketball court, I mean, he's got, it's a lot going on there. And we proposed, you know, we're on the pool house, no one sees it. We submitted a site plan, there'll be screening all around the property. That's also before the ARB. Down the sides of the property, there'll be screening. So if just, I mean, I prefer 5 feet.
I prefer 15 feet going back.
All right, okay. If I agree to move it back 10 feet,
Well, you can get 5 off the pool, as I
Right.
said. That's right off the bat.
right,
Doesn't affect anything really.
right.
You gotta pick up this up 5 feet more between the house and the pool.
All right. All right, then. Okay. I can agree to move the house back. I'm not sure why the pool house is an issue. Again, it's out of sight and it's gonna be screened, no one sees it. We need storage.
Well, the pool house is an issue because it's oversized for the size of the lot, even though it's not oversized for the zone.
For the zoning, right,
I
right,
mean, if you had a lot that met the zone, 80,000 square feet, you probably wouldn't even be here.
right. Oh, correct.
But you got a small lot in a large zone.
Hold on. The proposed, what is it?
You don't have to make your decision right on the spot. It's gonna have to be adjourned anyhow, because you're gonna have to submit a revised site plan showing the revisions that you're willing to do. So, think about it, have a revised site plan done, and then come back, and the board can make a decision, one way or the other.
Okay, fair enough.
Is there anyone from the public who'd like to hear to this application? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I'm Candace Post. I live at 420 Hill Street, directly to the west of 414 Hill Street. I appreciate the comments of the board and the considerations that you've made and you've taken, and what you've taken into consideration. And I tend to agree with them. I think because this house, the proposed house, is going practically from property line to property line, the impact from the street would be, quite noticeable. Setting it back, I think, would help that. A number of the other houses on the street have been there for quite some time, but the side, the property to the sides of the houses usually is a lot bigger than what is proposed here. And also the houses have a bit more character to them. Perhaps they have a shed roof or a dormer or a gambrel roof and aren't just completely straight. So I think that your comments and your concerns are very apropos, and thank you very much.
Anybody else would like to be heard? Before we go to adjourn this for all purposes.
So if I propose a new site plan, propose it before the next meeting?
What's that?
You need the site plan by when?
It'd be good if we had it by the work session,
By the work session?
which is, what's the May meeting?
I don't have the May calendar in front of me.
May starts on a Sunday, 13th, 27th, must be the
Must be the-
26th. 26th, I think, is the public session, so the work session would be 9 days before that, would be the 17th.
Okay. Thank you.
Make the motion?
I
I
give a
move we
second.
adjourn.
Yeah, I
Oh.
second.
All in favor?
Have a good one. I don't see anything else coming up.
No,
Half a day, what is this?
Amanda did it.
Good night.
Jesus, look at this. Oh, Henry's-
On the application of case number 2921, Mark Cuddy, 27 Henry Street.
Hello.
Hello,
How many copies do you need?
8.
We have two issues, the driveway and the variance for the 12-foot pool. I don't know which one you want to start with.
Start whichever one you wish to start. Oop.
Right now, I'm Health Department approved and ARB approved for a 10-foot by 30-foot pool, taking down the existing cottage and putting a 10-foot by 10 by 6.35-foot pool house, and giving up my certificate of occupancy for the cottage. And I'm going for a variance because I believe it's going to decrease my value by giving up this CO. And in compensation for that, I would like a wider pool that I feel would bring value to my property.
I think we may have pointed out last month that this board is very adverse to giving a variance to
You
small
made that
homes.
clear. You did.
I will reiterate,
And you did.
I mean, you got room for a 10-foot wide pool, because you got 50 feet, 20 and 20.
I do. But if I'm giving up a cottage and an income rental, that I'd rather have the compensation of having a wider pool.
Safety issue,
Safety for what?
Safety and noise.
safety and noise.
2 feet.
Somebody goes over the fence, agreed, this is cutting through yards, you dump right into a pool. That's why they want the side yard at 20. It's one of the issues for it. A lot of times, you'll get a variance if it's against a sump.
Right.
None of that house.
So the existing cottage is gonna be torn down, and a new pool house / garage is gonna be there, right? In the same location, but not as wide.
Same location, the pool house?
Yeah,
Yes.
as the cottage, it's just not gonna be as wide.
It's not going to be as wide.
Now, the parking in the front,
Yes.
the building department wants you to have it so it goes this way, right?
Correct.
And it'll be screened.
Correct.
As you have it now, it's just going straight.
It was a 15-foot driveway previously, it now is a 23-foot wide driveway.
So you can get 2 cars side by side. If they want you to have one in and one this way.
Yes.
I assume they told you the reason for that. They didn't used to allow parking in front yards, and they changed it to get cars off the street.
Yes.
But they want them to be screened, and they want them to be not directly in, but turned this way. That's why that's so.
Everyone else in my neighborhood has a double wide driveway.
Yeah, but they're probably all there for years and years and years.
Some are brand new construction. 64 Armand. Armand is, the 2 houses on Armand Street, 64 and the 62, I believe, they're both double wide driveways.
I think because it's an
Talking
existing.
about the new one that's on the corner lot on Almond Street?
The new one on the corner, and the one
They have
next
a
to it.
garage there,
Yes,
2-car garage.
yes.
So what stands before the garage is just the driveway.
Right.
If they have to leave a car there, they leave a car there. Plus, it's all
Well,
screened.
if I'm keeping the cottage the way it is now, so if I have 27 Henry Street, and I have 27, I should be able to have two separate driveways.
You should be able to what?
Two separate driveways without interfering.
How could you get two driveways?
Where's this one?
Excuse me?
How come? How so?
Because if I keep the cottage, which I plan on doing because I can't get a wider pool, then I would have my tenant park on the left part of the driveway without interfering with the main driveway. It's all one driveway.
But you're talking about two
Still likely to
driveways.
turn it this way. Your tenant would have to go in and,
Well, if he turns, and then another car could be blocking it. This way it gives free access. And I could take off the wings on the end and really only make it about 22 feet wide.
in other words, you're saying if you don't get the 2 feet for the pool, you won't change the cottage to a pool house. And that's the way it is, that's what it is there now, it's your choice.
If you're not gonna give me the variance, I don't think it's cost effective to do it. And I'm only going 2 feet on one side. There's a 20-foot hedge to the south. I don't think anyone's running through the backyard.
We've done that before.
What?
They trade off the, existing
I don't think it was for a pool, was it?
that's what I don't know.
I doubt it.
Have we ever done, I mean, we've done that in the past where someone has given up a use for a variance. Have we ever done that for a pool?
I don't remember.
Which Flanagan, you know?
I can't remember that either. I don't know if we ever had one. Anyway, so where are we?
Where are we? I got the pool, and I got the driveway. And I got the CO for the cottage. I'll give
I'm
up the
trying
CO.
to, are you no longer asking for a setback variance for the parking space?
Well, what are we on, the parking space or the pool house?
For the moment, I'm trying to clarify what you said about the parking space.
The parking space, I
Well,
would,
let me ask the question.
yes, ask the question,
Okay.
please.
In your initial application, you asked for a setback variance to 0 feet from the easterly line, which is Henry Street. Now, but you didn't have a site plan. Now your site plan shows a parking space setback from Henry Street. It doesn't show the setback. Is that 5 feet?
If they're bringing closer, I can't see. I'm talking about this, right here?
You asked for a setback variance to have this 0 feet from Henry Street,
Well, this is what's here.
but you didn't give us a site plan.
Well, you have it now. This is the
Yeah,
existing.
but this is
right now.
showing the parking space with a setback from Hill Street, from Henry
I
Street.
put it in both ways. That if I did it, if
Okay.
I went back to the original way, it would be that one.
I don't know whether you're asking for a variance or not, and you're not answering the question.
I'm asking for a variance to keep.
Is there any reason why
keep
you
it
can't
this
be
way.
5 feet from Henry Street?
If I do it this way and I keep the cottage,
Forget all this stuff back here.
if I have two residents, it would be easier to have two driveways. If I have a car that goes in and hooks to the left, this driveway's gonna interfere.
If this parking area is 5 feet from Hill Street, you don't need, Hill Street, from Henry Street, you don't need a
I'm
variance
not asking
for
for a variance for that. They just drew it in as a proposed. What I'm asking for.
it. You asked
is-
for a setback variance to 0 feet. And we didn't understand what you were asking for initially because you didn't show any parking space.
What I'm asking for is to make my driveway 9 feet wider than existing.
Okay, we don't,
He wants to be able to drive straight in front of his porch.
okay, I don't know what he's asking, I don't know if he is asking for a variance or not. The only parking space, this was advertised as an off-street parking space to a 0 setback from the eastern property line.
I don't know what they filed it as when I went to Village Hall.
9 feet wider.
What I'm asking for is, this driveway is 15 feet wide, I'm asking for a 24-foot wide driveway. That's what I'm asking for.
Okay. Then you need to go back to the building department, because we don't regulate the size of driveways.
Why am I here?
Several reasons.
Yes.
You're here for the 2 feet on the pool.
You're initially here because they thought you were asking for an off-street parking space to a 0 setback. Now, if you are asking for that, you haven't shown it on the survey.
I'm not asking for that.
Well, in the application it says you
Okay,
are.
then let's mark it, the request for a setback variance for an off-street parking space is withdrawn, and all we're left with is the pool. Is that the way you want it? If you're asking for a variance for a parking space or something, you've got to show us what you're asking for.
I'm asking for a wider driveway.
Show us.
It's on there. This is here. This is the driveway right here.
How wide is the driveway now? 'Cause you got 2 cars there side by side.
That's the way it is now. And they're telling me it's not legal.
Okay, don't write up the survey, because now you're putting markings on it that,
I'll get you another one.
if you need a variance for up here, you've got to go back to the building department, find out what variance you need, and show it on here.
With measurements.
Okay.
Because if the only parking space that you're showing is here, and if it's 5 feet, but you
No,
haven't,
that has nothing to do with it. That's not even there.
hasn't to do with that,
No.
then I don't know what you're asking for a variance for.
I just told you, a wider driveway.
How wide is the driveway right now?
24 feet.
And you want it to be how wide?
I want it to stay 24 feet.
Okay. In other words, it already is 24, and you want a variance so it stays 24. You don't want to have to right angle the parking space.
Yes, correct. Do I have to go back and get something for that?
Well, I think I understand just what he wants. He doesn't want to have to right angle his parking space. When they changed the code to allow parking in the front yard, they want screening. So they want him to bring one car in and turn it this way so it faces south, and screen in front of it.
Right.
And that's what he's objecting to. He wants to be able to park side by side.
And it's a 50-foot lot, so you want almost half of it to be driveway curb cut.
Okay, all I'm saying is that this site plan doesn't show any proposed parking spaces other than this thing over here. So I don't know what he's asking for.
I told you 3 times.
You
What I
haven't
told
told us 3 times in relation to
Told
the
you.
zoning code.
That's not
3
what we have
times.
is this.
That is proposed.
This
That's
is
what
what
the
he wants.
proposed is what
No.
they
That's
told me
not
that
what he
you
wants to keep
want
this.
and what I should have.
I don't
What
know
I'm
why
saying, the
it's
driveway
based
now
on
is 24 feet existing.
Okay, do you know what section of the zoning code you're seeking a variance from?
No, I do not.
Okay, well, neither do we.
Okay,
So
I will go back and get it.
there may be
I
something.
was here last time, I explained it, and you never said a word. What-
Yes, I did.
No, you
I
didn't.
mentioned that it was advertised as an
You
off-street.
did not.
I did.
I think we discussed the parking
Yeah.
before. that You
And-
don't want what the village wants you to have.
Yes.
And that was mentioned. I'm not sure.
Oh, so I'll go back to Village Hall.
If there's a section of the zoning code that you're asking for a variance from that we're not aware of,
I'll get it.
get it.
And
But
we
the
don't-
section that the
I
section,
understand, I understand.
the
what you're
section
try- I
that's
understand
cited
what
in
you're trying
relation to
say.
your
I
application
understand what you're trying to say.
is the one that requires 5 feet.
Yes.
So we'll leave that open until he,
But I have a question. If he's going to knock down his cottage, does he need a variance for the side yard setback? which is 10 feet, and he has it 4.10 or something.
It's existing.
It's not existing once you tear it down.
Do I have to leave a wall up?
I don't know, I'm asking a question.
That is usually a technicality that has been not done in the past. So it's like a renovation of an existing rather than, but then you probably, there's no basement under this now?
No, but I'd like to put a basement in for the pool
Yeah,
equipment.
that's probably, yeah.
So is there an answer
Full
to my
basement?
question, or what?
Just in the back.
I think what are they allowed, 4? Is that what you're allowed under an accessory building?
You can't stand up, I think it's 6.
You can't stand up, okay.
Right. Well, I have to put the basement in, so whether I leave a wall up, that's fine.
Does he need a variance, Rick, if he tears it down?
Again, I don't know.
Where he is now, he's only off the line by 4.9 feet.
Because I don't know what he's doing. He's got something that he handed up tonight that says proposed pool house and garage. But that's just a site plan. It doesn't show, any plan details. I think he needs to sit down with a building inspector, show him exactly what he's proposing, and straighten out what he's asking for that's not allowed. What is the building department requiring
Well,
that he wants a variance for?
on the site plan that we got tonight, it does show the proposed on-site parking with the turn. Which is probably what the
But they
building
didn't put any
department wants.
measurements on it.
There's no measurements on it, but it shows it facing south, which is what the building department wants to do. But there's no, we can't tell how far it is off the street.
On the site plan or the
need
survey?
measurements on the survey
On this one, it
showing,
came to,
Oh, the survey.
it's the survey, so.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It shows proposed parking.
Right.
It doesn't show the setback,
No,
but he says that's not what he's asking a variance for.
no, he's asking the variance from this. This is what the village wants, and he's asking the variance for what he has now, in effect.
Okay. It doesn't show the setback. If
No.
it's 5 feet, it doesn't need a variance.
Right.
It could be 5 feet. I don't have a ruler to scale it off. But he says he's not asking him for a
I'm not
variance
asking
for
for
that.
that.
He said he's asking for a variance for
what
the,
you need to do
For-
is show what you're asking
no,
for.
he said he's asking for a variance for the width of the driveway.
Right.
Right. So you need to draw that on the plan.
But I don't know
you're
what
asking for.
section of the zoning code
I'll find out from the
he's
village.
talking about, and he doesn't know either.
Okay.
Now,
So-
there is a pre-existing cottage on the property. And he's proposing to tear that down and then build a pool house / garage on the exact same footprint. And the question is, once he tears that down, does he then need a variance for the new building?
That's what I said twice.
Again, I don't know, the initial thing said existing cottage to become pool house and garage. But it sounds like he's knocking it down and building something else.
Yeah, he is.
Right.
So he needs to we shouldn't sit here and speculate
No.
about plan details that we don't have in front of us and that we don't know what the building department is gonna say. So he needs to sit down with a building inspector, show them exactly what he wants to do, and then have them say whether it's permitted or whether it needs a variance, and if it needs a variance from what? Then we'll know what he's talking about.
Right.
When you talk to the building department,
Mhm.
that they might be under the assumption that you're just renovating the existing structure, that you're not planning on tearing it down, putting a whole new foundation and basement. So explain that to them, so that they'll
Okay.
tell you then, if you're gonna do it that way, you need this kind of relief or variance. If you leave part of the building, they'll explain it to you, and then you'll know what to ask us.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's already approved, I'm ARB approved on that. So I don't know why I would need a variance if I'm ARB approved.
Because they have nothing to do with setbacks on property, they only have to do.
So to get the permit, I need to sit with the building inspector.
You need to, yes, and
You need to
Comply
sit
to
down with a
zoning.
building inspector, show him exactly what you're planning to do,
Okay,
and then find out whether they can issue a permit for it, or whether you need a variance.
okay. And as far as
And then
12
when
foot
they
pool-
identify what you need, you should be filing an application that says you are looking for a variance from section so-and-so. Then we're all on the same
For the
wavelength.
driveway? Well, that's what I told them, and that's what they filled it out.
Talking to make it a single.
I don't know the variance in the code numbers. That's what I told them I needed to do, and that's what they
I can probably
applied
tell
for.
you that. So far as the parking, that would be under the code for front yard parking. I don't know what the number is, but that would be.
I'll find
Did you
that out.
talk to one of the inspectors? or
Well,
just
the
talk to
number is
staff?
5 feet.
You didn't talk to an inspector? So maybe,
Talk
you
with
just,
John.
well, yeah.
I'll
you
speak
talk
to the
one of
inspector.
And
And how we,
Excuse me.
I'll speak to them tomorrow. And then as far as the variance for the pool, that's under review, or you're giving your decision?
You still have it before us, we haven't made
Okay.
any decisions yet.
You do have an argument, about the giving up the rights, but then this whole other two issues came up, so,
Yeah.
we haven't decided one way or the other. so.
Okay.
Is there anyone from the public who'd like to heard of this application? Therefore, we're going to adjourn this for all purposes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That brings us down to the new cases. First one being 2922, David Einhorn, 50 Pheasant Close East.
Evening, John Bennett for the applicant, and the project architect James McChesney is here with me this evening. Just a bit of sort of, what's the word, I guess bookkeeping or whatever it is before we start. Subsequent to the filing of the variance, I noticed that there's a coverage issue, and I know you guys are loath to grant coverage, request for coverage. The existing house and improvements are over the 14% plus 1,500, and we propose to add 730 square feet of an addition. So whatever your pleasure is on this, in doing a sort of a back of the envelope calculation while waiting for the application to be heard, I realized that we could easily make up that coverage if we reconfigured the deck. The building department's position has always been that a wood deck above a certain height counts as coverage, but a deck or a patio at grade does not. So we could more than amply make up for the coverage, and might even actually get down to a point where the lot coverage would come back into conformance, but certainly wouldn't increase the lot coverage if this deck was reworked. Now, my question to you is, I'd sort of prefer to put the variance application in for the addition, which is which we need 20 feet of front yard relief for, but if you'd prefer that I come back and show the deck, reworked so as coverage wouldn't be a problem, I can do that as well. I know I can remedy the coverage issue, and I apologize for not having done so when the application was submitted. And I'd sort of like to, see what your thoughts are on the front yard setback, but if you want me to come back with the coverage issue, removed, I can do that. I'm not asking for any lot. I'm not foolish enough to ask this board for any sort of lot coverage variance relief. Can I proceed with the variance with the understanding that I'll cure the request, that I will cure the lot coverage issue, or would you prefer that I come back?
I don't have a problem with you.
Okay.
You haven't asked for a lot coverage.
No, I have not, and I realize
So
I have to
you're gonna have to
reconfigure
cure
things.
it.
Gonna have to cure it, exactly, so. So thank you, and I appreciate it, and again, I apologize for just springing that issue on you this evening, but again, I understand it's gonna be our duty to cure that lot coverage issue, and again, I have no intention of asking for it, because that is one variance that I know this board I think in all my years, you guys are kind enough to give me one lot coverage variance, and that was for the addition to Our Lady of the Hampton School. So, and that was a special case, so, but in any event, the property is located, it's a corner lot, which, as you know, creates issues to begin with, because we're dealing with 2 front yard setbacks. It's located on the corner of Pheasant Close East and Pheasant Court East. The property, although it has 2 front yards, the functional front yard is on Pheasant Close East. We're looking for 20 feet of relief, if possible, to Pheasant Court East. Lot number 9 of the subdivision, which is to the north, also, although it has 2 front yards, its functional driveway is off of Pheasant Close East. So both of these lots, although certainly both have 2 front yards, their functional driveways are off of Pheasant Close East. So their functional driveways are both to the west.
That court is just a dead end right here.
And the court is a dead end.
cul-de-sac.
It's a dead end. And I think in realization of that, the board, per the prior owner, was kind enough back in 1995 to grant a variance to enable a tennis court to be a front yard variance, and I guess a variance from the requirements of that a tennis court not be in a front yard. There's 2 separate sections to 37. Well, actually, the variance was to 36 feet. They've held 37.3 feet. So there is a recognition. In the past, the board was kind enough to grant a variance to the prior owner to 37.3 feet to hold for front yard relief for the tennis court. What are we asking for now? I did submit a copy of the 4 sheets of building drawings, which I'll have Jim McChesney go through, and I'll talk about briefly. But the thought is to have an addition to what amounts to the functional side yard, albeit a legal front yard, to the north, to allow for additional bedrooms. It would be behind the front yard variance that was previously and kindly granted for the tennis court. As you can see from driving down the street, all of these properties are well screened by very mature hedges. There is a basketball court with a basketball that is fairly close to Pheasant Court East. I've shown that, much to the sorrow of my client, but I've shown that to be removed because you can't have that there. So that's proposed to be removed, so we can clear up, to the extent that that's any issue, we would clear that up. Although the pyramid law is not in issue here, one of the things that I thought would be helpful for the board to see, and we showed that, I think you should have some small handouts, but we did show that on sheet number A201. If you were to apply the pyramid law as it relates to Pheasant Court East, you'd see we'd be very generously in compliance with that. Not that the pyramid law complies, but it's nice to see the fact that, I think of the pyramid law as a law that was enacted to make sure that there's appropriate air and light between structures, and we would handily comply with that. And again, if this were a side yard, which of course it's not, but if it were a side yard, it would be a 30-foot side yard, and we're double that. So we would need relief from the required 80 feet to 60 feet. It is a corner lot, and one of the reasons, the reasons why we chose to locate the proposed addition off the north is in many ways dictated by the, make sure I have the first floor. first floor plan dictated by the existing interior flow of the house. And I'll let Jim come up and explain that a bit. Jim, if you want to show the thinking that was, I mean, some of the things are, this is the living area, and to put bedrooms here you'd block the sun and the access to the backyard and the pool, that, all of a sudden you'd have bedrooms between where the family room and the kitchen is, and cease that easy outflow to the outdoor living area, but I'll let you explain more.
As John said, yes, it made sense to me to locate the addition on this side. It really allowed for a lot of light to get into the middle of the house. And in addition to that, in regard to the front yard setback on this kind of side street, that it really, to me, as you said, it kind of seems like it's a dead-end street. I also thought from the street, putting the addition here would actually make the garage seem further away from the street, because the addition would be closer to the street. So in general, the review boards don't like to have the garage doors facing a street. And I thought by doing this, it would appear that the garage was further away from the street. In addition, it just laid out better on the second floor to have the mass above this section, because it would allow me to just continue the roof line, the ridge of the roof line, and again, kind of just create more light in the middle of the house.
So, and the existing backyard of the house is developed and planted, and there's a nice articulation between the deck, which of course we're going to have to reconfigure to make it a patio, and the pool, and so the thought would be to do less damage to the existing improvements in the house.
Yeah, it appeared you'd have to, anywhere else, you would have to reconfigure a lot of the existing house in order to make it.
You really would. I mean, if you did it on the opposite side, which is really the only place that you could do it, it would just get too close to the existing pool. I mean, it would interrupt all of a new addition that it was previously done. It just, logically, it just lays out the best, and it's the least disruptive of the house. And I think it actually benefits the neighborhood, because as I said, it makes the garage appear further away from the house, because the doors aren't the furthest thing closest to the street.
And in any event, there's even a quick drive around there. We have an aerial photograph and some photographs, but it's very, very well screened. I think the addition will probably disappear from view. But, we're in your hands. We think it's a sort of a reasonable request, but you'll be the judge of that, of course. So I guess, obviously, unless council or the board members have any questions, I would just ask that the matter be adjourned. I have to work out this lot coverage issue and come back to you with a survey that makes sense for the lot coverage.
Any questions?
No.
Rick,
No questions?
do you have anything from the public? I'd like to talk to this, yes, ma'am, come up, please.
My house just happened to be right
Have your
across
name for
the...
the-
Oh, my name is Beatrice Rubinstein. I live in New York City. My summer house is just across the street. And I am amazed to hear, I was just speechless to hear, that this is to improve the appearance of the neighborhood. In this brochure that you have here, I don't have my glasses on, my house has a circular driveway, okay? You come in here, it's a circular driveway, and right here is a three-car garage. We're right across the street, it's lot number 9. I have a circular driveway right here, and it goes into the garage, a three-car garage right here. Here, it shows a door. They have a driveway right here, and it shows a door here into the garage, into the side. Now, the proposed, that door, by the way, that's in here, has been closed about 5 or 6 years ago, miraculously, and replaced by a ball court. And that ball court is 2 feet from the hedge. Okay, this door does not exist anymore for the last at least 5 years, minimum. And it says here that they propose to abolish the ball court. Now, what do they mean? Replace by grass, leave some dry, because that was the entrance to the garage. But when they say they're making an extension for, in the letter that they got in New York says for guests and staff means more cars, right? No, if the driveway has been, there is no way entrance to the garage from this driveway. So where are they going to park? And could they please, if the door that, I mean, they're not doing any favor, the door is closed for years now. And it still shows up here, and I find that totally appalling. And I would like when they have the new plan submitted, show where they're going to park the cars and show how do they go from the driveway to the garage, because the door to the garage has been closed in order to make the ball.
The doors to the garage are closed?
Yes.
In order to.
They were closed when I was there today, but.
No, the door, not the door, I mean, if I had a pen, I could draw it for you. See here, there is a door, a garage, the door going into the garage. What?
Gate?
A gate. I'm sorry, gate. Sorry with my English, okay? I'm not American. The gate here, okay? That gate does not exist. The gate that is in here is not in existence.
There's a
Okay?
gate there.
What?
There's a gate there.
What?
There's a gate off the driveway leading to the backyard.
Yes, but not in the premises. This is the driveway to get in, the gate, okay?
Yeah,
There is a gate and a driveway.
yeah.
There's another gate here, supposedly, right?
Oh, you mean that they're not showing the gate on the survey?
What? It does not exist. There is no gate.
They're not gonna put one there either.
I'm not gonna put one there.
But there was a gate in the thing that I saw in the building. I came, when
Oh,
I
in the
got this
building?
on the mail, I came to see the building department. And they have a gate right there in the plans that's in the building department in the village. I just saw it yesterday.
There's not gonna be
the-
one
the-
down here.
Yeah, okay?
If that's what yours,
That has disappeared.
Well, we would,
this is all the existing. This
This
isn't gonna be
existing,
here.
yeah, but in the village upstairs, where is it, the second floor, that gate is in existence.
well, there's no proposal to, I
It's
can
not
assure
on
you.
the plans here.
Not on the plans, no. It's not, there's no proposal. If you're concerned about someone driving out onto Pheasant Court and,
I am not concerned about Pheasant Court. What
Oh,
I want
okay.
to know is how you're going to
we're gonna
close,
remove that.
and what are you going to put, grass?
Grass.
Absolutely
We'll take the
grass.
court down as well. It said, the survey says, basketball court to be removed.
But it doesn't say what it will be replaced with, right?
Remove the,
Removed.
what, the hoop?
No, the hoop I don't care about. They get it to be in grass.
The whole thing is gone.
It'll be grass.
And grass.
The big grass. Okay, and how are you going in the garage? How many cars are you going to have in
So
the
the garage
garage?
is right here.
Yeah, for how many cars? You're adding bedrooms and for staff and guests, right?
It can
So
have
how
two
many cars are you,
cars.
how many?
Two.
You have 2 cars, and where,
In the garage. But there's plenty of
So-
park, there's more than adequate parking for not only the existing bedrooms, but the proposed, but we'll show that. We'll show you the
Because
calculations for that.
this will be screened here, so there's parking here. And then in the garage.
but please don't say that you're enhancing the view from the neighbors, because
No,
you're-
no, no, no.
it's just, that's almost insult.
Okay. Anybody else would like to hear this application? So you have to work on the deck,
Yep.
right?
Have to work on the
Anything else
deck.
you have to work on?
And we'll show you, we'll, if you want, we'll show you the parking. I think it's pretty
Yeah,
obvious,
show
but
us the
we'll show the
parking.
parking.
How many spaces
Okay,
you require to put in the number of bedrooms?
very good.
So
Okay,
we
if
have a
you could,
motion to adjourn the floor purposes.
thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
On the application of case number 2923, Emeron East Corp., 276 North Main Street.
Good evening, board members. Mr. DePietris, Monica Navia with the Law Office of Monica S. Navia at 6 Rogers Court, Sag Harbor, New York, 11963. This time I want to submit the affidavits of posting and of mailing. And we are asking for relief from sections 116.9 and sections 116-11.1 at the property of 276 North Main Street, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. It's with the entrance of the village. I just want to refresh everyone's recollection of the property. And we're requesting relief for an accessory garage structure with a height of 28 feet, wherein the code allows 16 feet, and the square footage of the structure would be 1,200 square feet. And I want to, at this time, point out that... Bless you,
Sorry.
I think.
Jeez.
It's filed under, it says here, section 116-9A1B1, accessory building shall not exceed 520. But I just wanted to point out that this lot area is 40,000 square feet, so it would actually fall under 116-9A1B2, which says, in districts requiring more than 20,000 square feet, an accessory building shall not exceed 800 square feet. So I just wanted to point out that
Okay, what zone are you in?
12.5. So we're not,
Well, that's what the application says.
yes, but on...
So you're in a district requiring less than 20,000 square feet. So you are under B1.
But according to the building department today, because the lot area is 40,000 square feet, you would fall under A1, B2.
No.
Is that not?
That's my understanding.
The zoning district you're in
We can use it against you.
is R 12.5.
Yes,
In
and
the
they,
R 12.5 zoning district, the required lot area is less than 20,000 square feet.
that may be, but according to the building department today, they said that they're going now based on lot and not on zone, and that based on that A1, B2
I don't know
would
who told
apply.
you that, but that's not what the section says.
But that's always been my understanding of how the building department handles that. So I think you're right on that.
Well, we just used it against the guy on Hill Street.
Did
where
we?
He was allowed 800 feet, but the lot was small, so you told him to knock it back to 500 feet. On Hill,
I thought this was the opposite situation.
it is.
So,
What I'm saying, she's right.
yeah, okay.
Thank you.
That still doesn't take us up to 1,200 square feet.
No, it doesn't
Right.
take you.
No, I know,
Nowhere
and-
near
and-
the 28 feet.
I don't know who from the building department told you that, but there is nothing in section 116.11.1, which is the stuff based on lot area. Those are yards.
But he said that was...
You might be able to make an argument that you should be allowed more because you have a larger lot.
Correct.
But that's an argument that you would address in support of asking for a variance. You still need a variance to exceed 520. Crystal clear.
Okay.
And if somebody's telling you different, then we can't just take that on hearsay.
Well, they said the regulations in 116-11.1 are from 2005, and since then it's changed, and that it's not on zone, and that it's on lot size.
The
And
lot,
they said
But you're still
specifically...
asking for
the
more.
Oh, no, I
required,
understand, but the reason that I'm pointing that out is that I'm asking
the
for an
required
increase
lot
of...
area comes from the table of dimensional regulations. 116.11.1 deals with yards.
I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just letting you know that their interpretation was that it wasn't 520 feet and it was actually 800 feet, and the reason that I'm pointing that out is that we're.
Okay, but you keep saying they, we don't know who.
The building department, building inspector. Do you want me to tell you exactly who?
If you want us to consider something that is directly contrary to the language in the code, you better get something in writing from the building department.
Okay,
The other thing is you're asking for 1,200 feet, correct?
correct, and the
Which
reason
is
I'm.
more than the 800 feet.
Absolutely,
that-
I'm just pointing out that if we're going by the 800, I'm only asking for 400 more, and not, and not
I'm 12
a
feet higher.
difference of
Yeah.
680. So I'm just pointing out that if we're going by the
If you
800, I'm
get
only
this, I'm gonna tear
asking.
my garage down.
But I'll come back with something in writing.
But you're asking for a lot more than we're probably gonna consider.
And I'm leaving that to your best judgment. We're asking
Why so
20, because it's gonna be an accessory structure and a garage, and there's gonna be,
Tractor trailer?
no, a lift for 3 cars, and then a lift for 3 more, so a total of 6 cars, so it has to be,
Cars
that
what?
high.
5 feet, 4 feet?
Doesn't have to be that high to get 2 cars stacked up.
Right.
Not necessarily,
You could do
it
it
doesn't
16
have to
feet.
be, but just to
If it's
make
angled
sure
right.
there's clearance.
No, well, you have a storage area marked over there. It's-
We have 11 feet for your ceiling height. And then you got 7.8 feet to your collar beams on the second floor, and you have no access to the second floor that I can see.
Well, it's a storage area, it
Yeah, but
says.
I don't see how you even get to it.
Well, then you can't
It's a lift.
store stuff there.
So if you don't way to get to it, then what do you need all that for?
I actually have my client here that can talk to what his intention is for the accessory structure. Or he was here.
He just walked out when
He
you
fled.
started to speak.
Okay,
It's confident.
it's my understanding that there would be a lift, and if there needed to be storage there, that there would be a way to access that area, but it's mainly for the use of 6 cars to be parked.
You can get 6 cars, you can get 3 lifts in without going up to 28 feet.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it and stay under 16 feet, or at 16 feet.
Okay, well, I'm leaving that to your best judgment, and that's what he requested.
Garage, what's the parking space, 10 by 20 in a garage?
Well, a normal two-car garage is like, a standard is 22 feet by 22 feet. So inside, you're gonna have maybe like 10-foot width for each car.
So 800 square feet, you get 4 cars in there, or thereabouts.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're side by side, yeah.
Yeah.
Might scratch something.
2-seaters.
You open the door.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what kind of cars, but I guess we wanted to be safe and make sure there was clearance there, so he requested 28 feet.
They
but
might be better off just doing two conforming buildings rather than one giant one giant garage building. You could put 2 accessory structures on this property.
That is an option, but being that it's at the entrance of the village and having several structures on that property would take away from the character, and the way that this accessory structure has been designed is that it looks like a barn, so it's more in tune with the beautiful characteristic of the neighborhood, especially as you drive in. I'm sure you all have this sketch of the barn, so they want it to look like a barn versus several busy structures on the property. And
When this site is all developed, I assume it's gonna be 3 homes there, right?
yes,
So then will we have 3 1,200 square foot garages and a 28 feet high?
no, I'm just
You're just working on
I'm
this
just
one at a
working on
time, and then
this
you come
one.
back to the other 2.
maybe, I can't say yes or no, but
Well, see,
just,
if we grant it, you can turn around and say, you just granted me one, you have to give me the second one.
no, and you can say, we're looking at this solely on this application. I
But
mean,
you
I
have-
understand.
It's gonna
We
be
don't
2
have any,
applications.
any grounds or reasons for granting either one of these variances that couldn't apply to every property in the village. This does not even remotely fall within the standards that we have to consider before granting a variance. Not even remotely, unless you have reasons that haven't yet occurred to you and haven't yet occurred to us.
Well, even if we didn't, even if we weren't able to build this property, this house on that lot, we're
So
still
the house we're not
requesting.
talking about, we're talking about,
No, I understand, but I'm saying whether this is built or not, whether the subdivision, that's not part of this application. I mean, as it is, the house there, we're still asking for an accessory structure, not,
That house is, that's gonna be torn down, I assume, right?
well, that's presently before the ARB, and that's what I've been back
Or do
and
you think it's
forth.
historic?
Yes.
Oh, boy. So are the oil tanks.
Is it in the historic district?
Yes.
The hill.
The hill?
It
Oh,
is in
yeah,
the historic
the storage
district.
tanks.
We're requesting
I gotta
that they
tell you
grant,
that I don't think we've ever granted a request this big for an accessory structure. So if you're planning to come back, you're not on very firm footing right now.
No.
so
I mean,
even what
that-
about the development, the Keene development near the hospital, there's a pool house like 20 feet.
4-acre lots. And it goes back to the appropriateness of the size of the lot.
That subdivision was a truly unique case.
Right.
It was a subdivision that went through planning board under the cluster zoning provisions, and the planning board modified various dimensional regulations for that subdivision because of the unique situation there and a lot of various factors. And when they came before us for that variance that you mentioned, it was consistent with everything that the planning board had modified before. That is a unique, and that decision was written as unique to that property. There's nothing you've said that would make this resemble that property
Okay.
or that subdivision.
And what about the property on Pulaski? There's an accessory structure that's also, I believe, 22, 24 feet. So the
Where?
building department has said that this board has
Pulaski
granted.
Street? I don't know which one it is. I have
Well,
to
I'll get
take
the
a ride down the
exact-
street and
Well,
look at it.
Yeah.
if you want to argue that this is similar to something that we granted in the past, you've got to provide to us
I mean, it's
that
not
information.
exactly, but it's,
But
you know, this board,
I can almost assure you that none of us recall granting these kind of substantial variances in our history.
and what,
Now, our recollection isn't perfect, but if you
Right.
think you have something that supports this, you got to provide it to us.
and I'm just leave it to your judgment, if we're asking for
Too much?
16 to 28, what would you recommend?
Excessive.
What would we recommend?
Code.
That you comply unless you show a good reason to get a variance.
Well, being that it's gonna be 6 cars and the lift is needed, you said we don't need 28, so
Sell
what would
2 cars.
you?
Could also dig down,
You could sell 3 cars, yeah.
or dig down, and you could do it.
But I mean, if it's not 28 feet, I mean, would you be amenable to
16,
22,
yes.
24?
16 feet would be very amenable. Yeah, as you know, this room is often filled with lawyers like yourself. Their ears are always tuned to see that we grant something like this because they'll be back in a matter of months.
Right.
with
Especially in
something
this
similar.
case, what about the other 2 houses
The
that
other
are
two,
gonna
well,
go up
if
there?
she's gonna be back
They're
to the
gonna
other
have this
2 houses.
puny little garage compared to this, they're gonna feel chagrined and.
Right.
You know, the other
Downtrodden.
time I've seen it done
Well, you
is
put
if
it on.
if the
Threadbare.
garage was attached to the house and was part of the house, it can become larger. But if it's gonna be an autonomous accessory structure, different rules apply.
No.
But I've seen
Put the-
3-car garages that were taller that were connected to the house.
Mm.
So you're in the design stage, so.
Okay. This is Mike White from Emanon, and I think he wants to just give his perspective on why he would need 28 feet and the lift and the cars, and regardless of whether the two houses are built on the side, or if we don't get the certificate of appropriateness granted and we can't demolish it. So he just wanted to add some things.
Well, I like Dan's idea. I could probably put a walkway to it and make it a 28-foot high garage if it's connected to the house.
It can't be an open type walkway, it has to be.
Well, I could close it in.
There are specific requirements in the zoning code that tell you what you need to do in order to make it part of
Right.
the house.
Well, I'll give you the history of this lot. This lot, I'm allowed by rights to have 9 lots. I could put a sewage treatment plant there. It's allowed, I could buy tax credits, but I didn't choose to go that route. I put 1-acre lots. Now, as you know, this is the entrance to the village, and I met with the Historical Society, and they were the ones who thought about putting these larger garages in, these barns, because they said that is what this village had. And the house on, Main Street that they just renovated, that the Historical Society owned, has a giant barn. And they said that's customary to what was in this village. They said somehow somebody decided to make it 16 foot, which would look ridiculous over there. And considering that's the entrance to the village, and you're not going to see these barns from the street, you know, I don't see why in this case it would be such a problem, because this is adding to the entrance of the village. I want to put picket fences there, continue those that are at the bed and breakfast. We were proposing to build these white farmhouses, and to continue that. You know, to put a 16-foot barn looks ridiculous, and it serves no purpose to do that.
Holds 2 cars.
Well,
I assume that this house is gonna be up for sale, right?
probably,
You don't plan to live there, do you?
no.
So how do you know the owner's gonna have 6 cars?
I don't know that, but it's more for aesthetics, to complete what I'm trying to
We're
build.
talking about having lifts, needing the height for lifts, so you can get 6 cars in there?
Well, here's what I don't understand. You have oil tanks that are 60 feet in the air, but that doesn't seem to bother anybody. Or the fact that it's connected to the industrial zone and there's a 35-foot white steel building behind it.
They're oil tanks, they're nothing to do with the residents.
I understand
I
that,
can-
but I'm trying
Yeah,
to block.
You're making an argument before, in other words, we have a zoning code of
Right.
rules that we have to, if you wanna go beyond them, you need a variance for.
Yep.
You know, and then we're looking at the village as a whole, not just your particular project. So if we grant you a variance, like she was saying, for this big building, you know, all of a sudden, every house in the village, even when they're not appropriate, they're gonna want the big barn, so that's why the village probably wrote the code this way. I can be sympathetic to you, or a larger lot, maybe could you support a larger and a taller accessory structure, but that's not what our code allows us to do. So your argument should be to the trustees about changing the code if you want, but that's a long process, you know?
Right.
So what are you dealt with? You know, you wanna build something, you know, so you either gotta attach it to the house and build a bigger garage, or you'll have to go with 2 accessory structures or a smaller accessory structure, because, you know, we probably won't grant you that larger building to the argument that you're making now.
Well, the reason I got this idea was because I saw the pool houses on Wickapog, and you granted a variance for those, for the height.
Talking
So,
about the Keene development?
yeah,
Our lawyer just explained that.
what's the hardship?
He just explained that whole thing. Weren't you
Were
here?
you not in the?
No, I wasn't in the room
wasn't-
for a second, I would,
I don't have that file in front of me, but what I said to Monica was that that subdivision was a unique subdivision. It was designed and went through the planning board cluster subdivision process, by which the planning board has the power to and did modify various dimensional regulations for that subdivision. So when that subdivision was approved and filed, the lots already had, each of the lots already had modifications to zoning regulations that were granted by the planning board, because the planning board felt that that was a unique subdivision, and evidenced that by the modifications that they granted. The planning board also said to us, when that variance application came to us, that had that been applied for at the time of the subdivision, that's something that they also would have done as a modification. So it didn't get a variance.
Where in the code does it say anywhere
Okay,
that the planning board could set dimensional regulations? That's not in the code, only the trustees can.
It's, okay, if you think you know the code, then.
I'm just asking you a
obviously don't.
question.
There's a provision.
There's no reason to talk down to him, Rick, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
It's late, I'm tired, and now we're explaining to him why some of his arguments have no bearing on this application. New York state law gives the planning board the power to modify dimensional regulations in connection with an overall plan for a subdivision where it's a cluster-type subdivision. And that's what was done by the planning board.
So being that I'm in the planning board now, I could ask them for that?
Are you doing
I'm on the final right now.
do you think I know what your subdivision looks like?
No, I'm just asking the question,
Is it a cluster subdivision?
No, but I've taken lots, and I'm asking for, I
Okay,
could have put 9 houses there by right.
So probably you could bring this
Right.
up before them.
Right.
Well, that depends on what kind of, you can't say that, Dan, because we haven't seen what the subdivision looks like. The state, that's power the state law grants to the planning board is limited to what's called cluster subdivisions.
Well,
Where?
I'm just saying, you could ask them if
And-
that's what that is, and if.
Oh, I can tell you what, a cluster subdivision is a subdivision where some of the lots are smaller than permitted by the zoning code. And that's, but in return for that, you're not getting any more lots than you would be allowed if they were all conforming, but you can get some smaller lots through a planning board modification if the overall number of lots doesn't exceed zoning, and if you're getting open space, substantial open space. So a cluster subdivision is designed to achieve substantial open space independent of the lots. And the planning board has, well, actually, I mean, it's a combination. It has to come, that involves the Board of Trustees and the planning board. It's a long process. When they started before the planning board. Then they had to come before the Board of Trustees for specific authorization to the planning board, because the state law provision says that it applies where the Board of Trustees grants that power. So this was a long, involved subdivision, and it ended up with various modifications, and in return for substantial open space.
Right.
And in addition to that, what is this?
Well, this is basically what, I'm not, if I really wanted to take this, to the most profitable way of doing this, and I didn't care what it looked like, I would have went for 9 lots. And what I'm asking for is, since I went to 3 lots, and I could show you what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to continue the picket fence, I'm trying to fix that area, because that's probably the worst area in the village. Thank you. And I'm not doing the barn to rent out to somebody or fix cars or something. I'm doing it to block the buildings. And I'm doing it to block the tanks the best I can, because it's really horrendous what it looks like over there. And, they're giving me a problem ripping down a Depression-era house that's falling down as it is. And there's not a person I've ever talked to that doesn't like this project, but for some reason the ARB doesn't. And, I'm not asking for relief just to make more money and build a barn. I don't think that really increases the value of your house. I'm doing it more for aesthetics. I'm trying to make the houses white, the barns white, like they used to be in the 17 and 1800s. And I'm willing to sign a covenant that if the village wanted to inspect these garages, that they're worried about a second floor or whatever going in, that's fine with me. I'll put a covenant in there. I'm not looking to build a 2-family house. It's for aesthetics, and I think the village really needs it on that street. And
Michael, if you think that if you or your attorney think that you can present grounds to try to make this unique, you have every right to do that. It hasn't been done yet. We don't have any knowledge as to what your proposed subdivision looks like. what we know about is what you've presented.
Right, no, I understand.
I
So,
didn't know that you were trying to
And
hide the
the
tanks.
argument you're making is
I
that
didn't
you,
know that you were trying to hide the tanks, but you know, that makes sense.
Yeah, the
That carries
plantings
weight.
up there.
the other thing is you said is you're going, you could do 9 lots and you're only doing 4.
Three.
You know, so that,
Yeah,
in that area, so that,
we don't know that.
yeah.
Right. Well, if you want me, I mean, it is for a public benefit. I don't think it's for necessarily the benefit of just the homeowner, because you're stopping this view of the tank, and it's, you know, the view of the metal buildings on Mariner Lane. So I think it's very important that
Can you
these go
show
up.
that to us, how, where you're placing these buildings that screen the
Absolutely.
tanks?
Absolutely.
That would be something good to see.
I mean, I'm willing to meet you guys there, and you could take a look at the whole site.
Yeah, we have to first have a
We've been
record.
there.
Right.
If you want to present copies of your subdivision to go along
Okay.
with your arguments, if you want to present photographs or other depictions of what you're trying to accomplish, so that we have evidence in the record. The board can always go look at it, but
Right. No, I understand.
it's got to be in a format that's in this record, because
If you have to defend it.
there would be zero chance of getting anything like these kind of variances unless it were a strongly presented case that made it so unique that the general property owners in the village would not be able to fall within that.
Well, the other
And
point.
there are lots of properties in the village that are oversized, but they don't have, they're still bound by that 800 square, you know, in the R80 zone and in the R120 zone, they're bound by the 800 square foot limitation.
But as far as.
You want to even go beyond that. You're not asking to go from 520 to 800, you're asking to go to 1,200,
Well, technically,
which is substantially bigger than you can have in any zone in the village, anywhere in the village.
but technically, I'm entitled to almost 5,000 square feet if I went for the nine lots. So I'm asking basically at some point for 3,000 square feet of square footage for accessory buildings for the 3 lots.
You know, but if you go to 9 lots, you're going for a major subdivision, I mean, it's a different ball of wax.
Well, it's also a lot more money you can make having
It's a
9
lot
lots.
more money, but there's, you know, there's open space.
Okay,
you know.
I don't want to seem impolite or anything, but there's not much point in making these arguments tonight when we have nothing
Okay,
to show what you're talking about.
okay.
So take the time to do your homework ahead of time and come to a hearing with things that you can show us,
Okay.
so that we can understand what you're saying.
Okay.
You're acquainted with the house at the northern end of your road on your side?
Yes.
That was an accessory building, I mean, not an accessory building, because it has a heated connector, and that adjunct building, if that's what, is larger than the
Right.
flipping house.
Well, I mean, that's.
I mean, I don't know if you can do it aesthetically, but it's,
I mean, you could still do it. I just wanted to put the barn back at the end, so you
Yeah.
don't see it from the street as much. And, you know, I mean, I could connect it to the house, which I don't think is gonna look so great. So.
be better for the farmer getting back there, you know?
Give the chickens in the warm weather.
But, whatever, it's very nice to say that. So is the barn, it is. I can't believe they're not gonna let you knock it down, though.
That house is, there was an expert that lives across the street, and she's mad about the house they let them, that they made them preserve on the other side of the street from there, that's on the road. And she lives behind there, and she happens to be an expert historian. She says, that house that I have is a Depression-era house, that's a Foursquare, that's worthless.
It's not,
Yeah. And she said there's no relevance, there's nothing to keep it there, and it's a shame if I gotta keep that. You know, because I think Monica showed you the picture of what we wanna build. They're all gonna be
Yeah.
white and white hedges and.
Yeah.
Very attractive.
Yeah, it's nice.
It would be a great improvement
The
to the
entrance of the
village.
village.
Yeah.
Versus what's there now, this is when you're into the village, what you see.
Yeah, that's inhabited now, though, I guess.
Sort of.
One that's right across the street, I guess they have to keep that too, don't they? The house that's right across the street,
Yeah.
the Aquino house, I guess they have to keep that?
They have to keep that.
I mean, that's in terrible shape.
What do you do with that house? I mean, as a builder, what do you do with that? I mean, once you take apart every single inch of a house, it's not the same house, and it's, and it's so rotted, what are you left with? you
Although
know?
they did do a nice
Get a
one
bunch
by
of high
the,
school
by the
juniors and a case of beer.
wall bombs there, you know, that they did do a nice
But-
job.
but he had, like-
That must have cost him a small fortune to
But he had a
do
good
it.
house
Huh?
to start with, you
Yeah.
know? That house is in fairly good condition. This one is like falling apart, you know?
So
Thanks.
just so that we're aware,
If you come back, could you
with the
also,
subdivision, what else
could you
do we
also
need?
give us something that, I mean, I don't know if anybody else has the same thing that I have, but the only thing that I have with
What I
this
got.
application is a reduced in size site plan
And there's also
that
plans in the file
I can't
that you
read.
should have?
Yeah, very
Are
small.
you gonna do it all the
They're-
same for all three
they're
lots?
shrunk
You
down
want something that big?
Well, I don't think it's really that big,
The
because
ones that
it's
are
only
folded
like.
up, I believe?
It's not,
You
it's,
gotta answer the question.
maybe.
Sounds like a yes.
Can you give us a site plan that we can
Yes.
read?
Well, we didn't know where to really start with this, so we just want to get some input and then go to the next step of what you needed, and, you know, we'll get a rendering of how it would look from the street, and I don't think you're really.
We can't even tell where it is on the property without guessing, because this is so small.
We'll get
I'm
some.
assuming that this is the
Yes.
proposed accessory building. You can't read on this thing. I mean, I know my eyesight is not great, but even with a magnifying glass, I can't tell what that says.
Right.
I mean, I guess that that's what you're asking for.
No, it's nice.
But give us something a little
Okay,
bit
but I
bigger.
think we did, I did submit bigger,
Yeah, but what we got in the
Landscaping,
individual
it's tiny.
packets didn't give us a survey, gave us that drawing that Rick was just referring to. You
right?
couldn't tell which was which, really.
But I think there's a larger one.
Yeah, there
There's
is.
larger
Yeah,
stuff
but
in
did you
here.
give 8
Five
copies of
stuff.
that larger
You've,
one?
you've gotta be showing us more, like if you're saying that this building is be
There's
screening
8
oil
copies
tanks.
of that bigger one.
In there, or maybe we didn't get.
I'll make it 11 by 17, so you could read it next time.
But I believe we did submit 8 copies of the bigger.
We didn't filter down.
Only one in here.
And I'll also get a picture of what it would look like connected to the house. You know, and I don't think that's a great option, you know, but I'll show it to you of what it looks like.
Is there anyone from the public who'd like to be heard? No.
Well,
Janet?
Therefore, we're going to
I
adjourn
don't know
this for all
what to say,
purposes?
but I live on that street.
Okay, do you want to speak to it?
Thank you.
Maybe on
Okay,
privately.
all right, okay. So we need to adjourn this for all purposes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now we need to move to adjourn the meeting.
Let's
Thank you.
adjourn that meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting of the South End Village Zoning Board of Appeals for the month of April 2016 is adjourned.